Hello, everyone. This is Raul Ramirez of Kung Fu Culture. So, welcome to our podcast. So, like I said, I want to try to make sure that we're doing something more regular on this channel. So, not only do we do Sanda, so Chinese kickboxing, I know most of our short videos are from there. Hopefully, pretty soon we're going to have more, even like the Chinese wrestling stuff, because I think I mentioned last time, but it's good to mention also. So if those of you or if any of you are UCLA students or like what live in the household of one or something like that, or a faculty or whatever, I believe that there's a way for you to get access to our classes at the university there. So UCLA, for those of you who are, I don't know, like I don't know, in other countries or whatever, that's a university here in California in the United States, in Los Angeles, California. So we are currently teaching several martial arts styles, or at least the department. So the UCLA Martial Arts Department has several martial arts styles that are taught. I teach a few of them, but this fall, when school starts up again, I will, in addition to Sanda, I'll also be teaching Chinese traditional wrestling. So that's the traditional jacket wrestling. So what that means is maybe you've seen, I've started to try to put some of our old training footage up where basically it's almost what maybe modern people who don't have much experience with Chinese martial arts, they might see as like judo. So you'll wear a vest and then you'll try to throw someone down. And so then the way Chinese it's usually called shuai jiao. Shuai jiao just means wrestling in Chinese, but um, in the United States and other places, you'll see these tournaments just be called shuai jiao tournaments. And so you have a time limit and you have to throw the other person down as many times as possible. Within that time limit, you get points for how many times you can throw them down. And also you can get more points for, like throwing them down where like in a spectacular way where you really get some elevation, you throw them with say like feet overhead, you get more points. And so we'll be hopefully showing more of that stuff too in the next few months here, since we'll be having a class for that. So if you are uh, at all able to access the gym at UCLA, go for it. Go ahead and try to take our class, because basically we're it seems as though the martial arts department is testing it out to see how many people will go or how many people will attend. So if it is successful, we get a core group of students, then we could totally continue having the class. Also, the one good thing about California is that one of the major Shuai organizations is based here. It's not in Los Angeles. It's north of us. It's closer to San Francisco, but there is competition, and there's like they are the ones who ran like the world competition when it was held in the United States. So you can think there's definitely more opportunities to train and compete if that's what you wanted to do. And it's a really fun style. So a lot less pressure than, maybe doing jujitsu and all that, and still really practical and applicable. And, a lot of styles are used, let's say a lot like the Shuai in particular, say the people who started the USA Shuai organization that's based here in California and near San Jose. Their father was, I believe, based out of Taiwan, but I believe he also showed like their police and stuff like that. So several areas in China use traditional Chinese wrestling as a base style for say like self-defense, or also even for law enforcement, because I think a lot of times you don't necessarily have to get too aggressive, but a lot of times if you can take someone down and restrain them, or like control, it's called like control and restraining them, then you're pretty safe and you don't have to hurt someone. Unlike a lot of times in the United States, I'm sure it makes world news when our police, just kill people on the street when they overdo it with the weapons and the chokeholds and stuff like that. All right. Okay. Actually, we got a couple comments. Thank you for commenting already. CJ, I think I can put it on the screen here. Said, man, I wish you trained in the UK. Chinese wrestling, catch Sanda. I have to, I have to make four with Tai Chi, Judo, combatives. Um, yeah. Oh, sorry about that. I wish. Well, come on over and visit. Yeah, you have to make do with all those. Um, yeah. See if you can visit Los Angeles one of these days for your vacation. We just had like a hurricane that was a tropical storm. I guess in Mexico it was still a hurricane, but really quickly it just like died out. And so here in Los Angeles, where I am, I'm kind of closer to the our major airport, and it wasn't too bad. So like the flights and stuff were still going, and I think they did try to minimize some of the flights, like because I believe that the weather service thought that the rain was going to get horrible in towards the evening, so there were still tons and tons of flights like towards the afternoon and later afternoon. So yeah, it wasn't really that bad for us here, and like yeah, the wind wasn't bad, but closer to or like further far east, away from the ocean, yeah, our deserts got just flooded, and like parts of the our major, you know, freeways and highway stuff. Those were actually they're underwater, which is pretty crazy because these are major transportation routes for like all our goods. So hopefully like it doesn't affect us too bad. Hopefully all that stuff uh, gets repaired right away because right now on the freeways out there, I saw on the news that there were like these semi trucks that deliver all these goods, potentially food and whatnot. They're just stuck because they can't go any other way because the freeway is just in the middle of the desert, so the middle of dirt. So and parts of the freeway are just like underwater now. So hopefully that gets cleared up. And so let's go ahead and maybe talk about that might actually lead us into our subject here. So I want to kind of I found this, so I thought it'd be kind of good to go over this. So one day I was at the bookstore. I thought this might be a cool thing to kind of talk about because this is the Art of War book. It's a text. It's ancient from. It says here on the cover of the book, Sun Tzu, but it's really pronounced Sun Tzu. That's his name up here. And appear on the book, right? So there's actually not the book is actually not this long, but this one is done in like a decorative way, so the pages are really thick, and they actually try to give an explanation as to like real world explanations to like some of the principles. So for those of you who don't know, this was written like quite a long time ago, and it shows kind of like martial art philosophy, but specifically war philosophy. And I don't want to like come off or like try to sound or I don't think I'm an expert in this. Me, actually, I did a lot of translation of ancient medical Chinese texts. So I did spend some time at the university studying this text in particular, but it was actually a long time ago. And since then, I spent way more time studying ancient medical texts that are thousands of years old and whatnot. But um, I thought this would be kind of fun because you can kind of see how some translations are done, and we can kind of talk about that, but then also talk about how it can apply today. Because I was thinking of maybe telling you about the example that they give in the book, and then we can show how to apply it, like when you're doing Sanda or even uh, the Shuai Jiao or these other types of things, or even like self defense or whatever. So I thought it'd be kind of cool. So with that being said, just know that each of these chapters are really short, so we can totally cover it, right? So chapter one, actually, I'll go ahead and tell you the person who translated this. His name is James Trapp. So, and I do want to like, well, another thing about the translation, like I said, I want to talk about it. So, luckily, he's nice enough to offer some footnotes because, yeah, he definitely takes some poetic license with some of the words and stuff. So I want to talk about that. But we'll go ahead and kind of show you his basic translation first. And the first thing you want to talk about with regards to when you approach a fight or a war in particular is planning. That's actually the very first chapter, planning. All right. And we'll go ahead and just read it. So I'll read you the English. Okay. Understanding the nature of war is of vital importance to the state. War is a place where life and death meet. It is the road to destruction or survival. It demands study. War has 5 decisive factors which you must take into account in your planning. You must fully understand their relevance. First, it is a moral compass. Second is heaven. Third is earth. Fourth is the commander. Fifth is regulation. All right, so this is the one part that kind of want to, so he goes on to explain. So in Sun Tzu himself will go on to explain, and then I'll read you the footnote, right? So we mentioned moral compass first. So a moral compass brings the people into accord with their ruler so that they will follow him in life and in death without fear. Heaven encompasses night and day, heat and cold, and the changing of seasons. Earth encompasses nearness and distance, ease and hindrance, wide plains and narrow gorges, matters of life or death. The general must be possessed of wisdom, honesty, benevolence, courage, and discipline. Regulation means the marshaling of the army, correct organization, and control of supplies. A general must pay attention to all 5, for they represent the difference between defeat and victory. All right, we're almost done with the chapter. These ancient ones are very, very short, so that's why I thought it would be cool to kind of go over it. So let's go and go over the footnote, which I'm glad the author here put it in because of the characters that are used. So when it talks about the moral compass, all right. So hopefully, well, you might not be able to see it so much with the on the video, but so the first thing would be here instead of the moral compass, what's actually written in ancient or in the ancient text is Tao, like Taoism. Tao. It's kind of like the way, right? Which is the philosophical practice of ancient times there, and it was referred to quite often in a lot of the ancient books, including the medical texts and stuff. Um, so that's what when he writes a moral compass, and so he kind of talks about it here. So he says, although the art of war is essentially a practical handbook, Sun Tzu incorporates philosophical principles from both Confucianism and Taoism. The character I've translated as a moral compass is Tao, which is the true way of Lao Tzu and Taoism, and clearly here shares something of the same meaning. The 5 qualities essential in a great general are pretty much the military equivalents of the 5 Confucian virtues. All right, so hopefully you're still here with me because the chapter is still just you still got a little bit more, and then we can kind of talk about like how to apply it in modern life, and I can give you the example that this author gives with regards to he uses a World War II um, example, but like let's apply it to your. Hopefully, you're not planning a war right now, but maybe hopefully you're only doing tournaments and stuff. So we'll talk about this. Okay, so we'll go on to finish the chapter. So it says you should retain those for your generals who heed this advice, for they will be victorious. You should dismiss those who do not, for they will be defeated. When planning victory according to my counsel, act according to the situation and make use of external factors. To act according to the situation is to seize the advantage by adapting one's plans. Okay, and so then he goes on to talk about successful war planning, right? So this is the part you're going to want to pay attention to. Okay, so it's a short paragraph, very philosophical. So hopefully it doesn't sound too confusing. Okay, and it's almost like easier said than done, right? But so this is the part you want to pay attention to. Successful war follows the path of deception. Thus, when you are able to act, feign incapacity. When deploying, feign inactivity. When you are close, appear to be far off. When you are distant, appear close. When your enemy seeks an advantage, lure him further. If he is in disorder, crush him. If he is organized, be ready for him. When he is strong, avoid him. When he is angry, goad him further. If he is humble, be overbearing. If he is resting, harry him. If his armies are united, split them. Attack where he is unprepared. Appear where you are least expected. Thus, you may see that in war, surprise is the key to victory. A victorious leader plans for many eventualities before the battle. A defeated leader plans only for a few. Many options bring victory, few options bring defeat. No options at all spell disaster. It is by using all these considerations that I can foresee who will be victorious and who will be defeated. All right, so we finished a whole chapter, the whole first chapter. All right, and we're almost done with the book, actually. Well, it's like I said, it's not too long. These ancient books usually aren't very long, except for the first medical text. It's actually like I can't remember if it's over 200 chapters, but each chapter again is short, and they usually just really get to the point. So like this chapter talks about the main principles that you want in not only in your army, the things that you want to consider when you're planning, right, in the planning phase, but also in the people that you trust to lead other parts of your army. So that's one of the main things. So like not only is it like planning your fighting, but planning who you want on your side, who you want to trust with leadership and whatnot. So in I'll kind of briefly go over his case study. So the case study that this author mentions is during the World War II, 1949, the Allied forces. So for those of you who don't know, right, it's like like United States and England and these other countries who worked together to attack Germany and to try to take back Europe. Right. So one of their places that they started um, was through Sicily. Right. So that part uh, of Italy there, and so the islands off the coast. So they were able to take it over, but according to the book here, a lot of the people who were in charge of planning that really had no further idea as to what they would do then, even though it could have been a very strategic point for them to launch other attacks, to further then fight back Mussolini in Italy. So he just talks about how like they were able to successfully take over this island, but not much happened after that. And also when they were able to kick out their enemies, right? They didn't take advantage of that aspect. So say like when Sun Tzu was talking about like when when they're when he says if he is in disorder, crush him, right? So they said that um, the enemy in Sicily was pretty much disorganized, and even when they were trying to get away, the Allied forces didn't really do much, but they were successful in taking over the island. But that was pretty much it. And so then that little victory, uh, due to short-sightedness and lack of planning, didn't amount to much, right? So how can this apply to your day-to-day life or even like your Sanda practice? So a lot of it is ultimately you want to be fit, like you want to make sure that you're working on like your cardio, your strength and conditioning, right? So these are all the different keys to success, like when you're wrestling, or if you're doing, so you're doing like the Shuai Jiao stuff or the Sanda stuff. You still need to have like a base of like strength, a good foundation, right? So I think that kind of can apply to like the Tao aspect that they mentioned here, like that whole moral compass. So the moral compass thing could also like imply or include, like say like your work ethic, your discipline. So if you are disciplined enough to be doing your cardio, your weightlifting, your stretching, then you will have a lot of these like these foundational aspects that will keep you strong. uh, you'll have those in place, and then your say your kickboxing ability or your wrestling ability, that can be on top of that when you actually go into the fight. But then once you go into the fight, especially if you have the ability to like see footage of your opponents like beforehand, like say if you are a professional fighter, then you'll have a little bit more access to that. Then you can make a plan based off of their footage. But a lot of us do who are doing like amateur tournaments and whatnot. Um, you might not know who these people are, so you got to then kind of still keep some of these philosophies in mind. So when you are in the heat of the battle or in the heat of your match, you have to be using deception. So a lot of times that means, like, a lot of times, at least in striking, you can use this a lot. Also in wrestling too, but the main thing is that like using your feints, right? So you already have a good base, like you know how to throw the punches and kicks, you know how to do the takedowns, but you can't just go in there and just expect to maybe throw a punch and kick, and then all of a sudden you grab onto the person and they have no defense and you throw them down. Especially when you're always like when you are against someone who's like your own level, like when you're more advanced and they're also advanced. So you can't expect to just go in there and like completely destroy someone. So you have to be ready for these different things. Um, so you can't like say if they so we actually, why don't we go through this chapter, or I'm sorry, the paragraph. So it says uh, when you are able to act, feign incapacity, right? So if you say if you are like you can basically kind of like, if you want to get them to come forward, if you're a really good counter striker, you can make them think that you're not moving around, right? So maybe don't move around so much, make them think that you're an easy target. They can just hit you at will or whatever. So then you can launch your counter strikes or your counter throws, right? When deploying feign inactivity, right? I think sometimes you can think about like some feints and stuff like that, where uh, you might trick them into thinking you're going to throw something, and maybe they'll move, but you didn't throw anything at all. You didn't throw a punch or a kick or whatever. And then once you've got them to move into like maybe a weaker position, or they're more upright or whatever, then maybe you can lower your level and do a takedown. These are the kinds of things, or these are like the applications that you kind of want to be thinking of, because try not to make it too complex or whatever, because um, that's definitely not what philosophers want you to be thinking. At least in my opinion, they really want you to kind of they're almost, they want you to understand some of what they're trying to say. Um, so these are the kinds of things you want to be doing when you're actually in a match, right? So let me see here. So yeah, if he's in this is the only thing though too I would want to be careful of. So it says if he is in disorder, crush him. Right, we got to make sure that they're really in disorder, right? So often you'll see this a lot in like pro MMA and pro kickboxing, where someone looks really beat, and so they're employing, or they're employing this philosophy where it's like they might start looking weak. They might start covering up, shelling up, covering their head, and then when someone goes in to just like unload their punches and kicks on them, then that's when they throw a really short hook to the other guy's face, and then they get knocked out, and this other person who was acting like they were weak just won by knockout, right? So you still have to use discernment. Don't completely unload like just without thinking. All right, you still got to be sharp. You still got to be um, you got to keep your wits about you, right? So especially when you're in a fight, and one where say like Sanda is what's called full contact, so that means you can knock someone out as a way to win. So you got to be careful, all right? But yeah, I would say maybe still like if they do seem like they're weak, I wouldn't want to unload on them. Only doing punches, you gotta change it up. Punches, kicks, maybe try to pressure them against the ropes, or if you're against a cage or whatever, you can try to keep pressure on them, keep them from moving. See if they are truly weak, or so. Um, because you'll find out too, like they still got a lot of strength, right? Then they'll start fighting back because they don't want to be pressed up against the cage, or they're not gonna like that sensation, so they'll fight back. So you can still like be hurting them, but still be careful because they could have read Sun Tzu too. They could have read Art of War, and then like now they're making you think that they're weak when they're still strong. All right. Yeah. So that's kind of like the next line where it says, "When he is strong, avoid him." Right. So you got to always be checking out the situation because a lot of this is deception. Right. So that's like the first line in the thing in this paragraph. The successful war follows the path of deception. Right. So you got to be aware, like while you're using deception, they could be using deception as well. Right. If like say like if his armies are united, split them. That you can put that like say if it's a one-on-one match, you can think like if they're say like in wrestling and even in Sanda too, right? It's like your guards, your hands are up. You got to split them in a way. So you got to split the guard. Sometimes that's what they'll say. Like if you want to be punching through the hands or bringing one hand down, getting it so that their defense is already diminished, and so you can set up your throws or your kicks, right? So especially if you can get their hands to come down a lot, then you can set up your high kicks. Yeah. So yeah, the last, so we'll go. I'll just read the last line or the last couple lines. A victorious leader plans for many eventualities before the battle. A defeated leader plans only for a few. Many options bring victory. Few options bring defeat. No options at all spell disaster. It is by using all these considerations that I can foresee who will be victorious and who will be defeated. All right. So, um, basically you got to be doing things in a smart way, so um, taking a lot into consideration, but try not to overwhelm yourself because then it's just like you'll just be anxiety ridden and you'll be fearful of losing, and then it might make you just paralyzed in inaction, right? So the main thing is just trying to calm down, building your base, like having a good solid foundation of fitness and skill, and then you got to try to go in there and be flexible between all these different ways of deception, but realizing that they can be using deception as well. So if you can kind of keep all these different aspects, so like the mental aspect, the physical aspect, the skill aspect, and then being fluid with the different types of deceptions and stuff like that, then you it may sound complicated and it's easier said than done, but it can help you to become more successful when you are in a match. All right. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and comment, or feel free to ask. I think that's probably pretty good for this section here, at least. So, what I want to try to do is, go through chapter by chapter. Not all of them are like really packed with gems and stuff like that, but we can go over all the different things that could potentially help you in your matches, whether it be Sanda or wrestling or whatever kind of even if you're not doing Chinese martial arts and you're doing something else, this can be helpful because even in I heard that a few decades ago in the United States, I think the art of war was passed around a lot in like in business, right? A lot of companies were forcing their CEOs and upper management to read this book. Um, I don't know how beneficial it is for people who don't really understand a lot of like the Taoism and all that stuff, um, but it's still really revered and considered very important. So I'll try to give my 2 cents. Hopefully that can help you, and if you want to give your 2 cents too, especially if you happen to be like, you never know if you're a scholar, like, if there's a scholar listening or whatever, and in ancient Chinese stuff, go ahead and chime in. It'll definitely be welcome. Yeah, and maybe I'll do some because there are some. It's really interesting, like in how I mentioned that I had spent a lot of time translating a lot of ancient medical texts. Um, I'll try to talk about some of those mentions because they will mention, of course, injury like wounds and stuff like that. But they will add a little bit of their philosophy in there about like the Taoism and all these different things and different philosophies. So, and it can apply to martial arts. So yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and leave it there. One of the main ideas, at least for this channel, is like I want to try to follow that one famous line, and hopefully I'll try to remember it. But it is strengthen your enlighten your mind and make fierce your body. So I think this philosophy can help you to become a more successful martial artist. So please use it wisely. All right. And so if you ever want to, if you have any other questions or stuff we want to talk that you would like for me to talk about, go ahead and put it in the comments. Okay. All right. So thanks. See you next time.